gives us a strange creature. Then we're sent into the field to start studying Pokemon. But before all that, we battle the mysterious fashion icon Volo. Wait, it's level 100? Of course it is, you read the title. Goodness. Yeah, and just like that, after the very first battle, I'm already questioning whether this challenge is going to be possible. I mean, if we can't beat this one, how are we possibly going to beat the other battles in this game, which, mind you, are the hardest in any Pokemon game ever. But thankfully, as we learned here, you don't actually have to win this one to move on, so we go ahead and move into the Obsidian Fieldlands and do all the tutorial stuff, then catch an absolutely ludicrous amount of Pokemon, get yeeted by the commander for no good reason, and lose our way forward in our first battle against our rival Ray. Yeah. After all of that, we innocently try to cross this little bridge here, but we're stopped in our tracks by the first mandatory battle of the game against May. Confident in our ability as a trainer, we head right into the battle, but Homegirl's Munchlax turns out to be a tank. Though, thanks to a couple lucky misses from its rollout, we do manage to burn this little guy, which nets us a bit of chip damage, but unfortunately, in this game, statuses like burn or poison aren't permanent. Instead, they're healed on their own after just a couple turns. And if you've seen any other similar challenges to this one, you'll know that strategies typically rely heavily on the damage from these statuses, especially in the early game. Anyway, the Munchlax heals its burn, and we lose the fight without any real hope of winning. In our next few attempts, we try to burn this thing with our Cyndaquil and some Ponyta that we caught, hoping to get some clutch misses from Munchlax's rollout, but eventually it becomes clear that this is way too unlikely to work. So what do we do here? Well, I'll tell you a couple things we don't do. We don't use items in battle because that's baby mode, and we don't grind battles against wild Pokemon because that kind of defeats the purpose of this challenge. Instead, we go out and catch a bunch more Pokemon. Catching Pokemon is necessary to progress the story in this game, so we'll have to do it at some point, and it just so happens that catching Pokemon also gives your whole party experience. Then we have a crazy idea. And no, it's not racing Kevin James to 1 million subscribers, though that is something we're doing, and it turns out that 90% of you out there aren't subscribed, which in this case is actually a good thing, because it means that you can still help the cause by just clicking that subscribe button, please and thank you. No, instead we're inspired as we remember that poison does more damage over time than burn, and these fields are currently overrun with tons of these little poisonous Wurmple. So we're able to assemble a team that would make Arceus itself quake in fear. I call it the Worm Squad. By using Wurmple's move Poison Sting, we keep May's little Butterball feeling ill and taking that sweet poison chip damage. If we're able to keep the poison up for the whole battle, and we get lucky enough with just 2 misses from rollout, it might be just enough for us to beat this thing. Just like that, this super scuffed version of Toxic Stalling allows us to claim victory. Now, after just a few hours, we can set foot in the second part of the first area in the game. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows from here. Unfortunately, after seeing the stunning power of the Bugene boys, we decide it's necessary to put another rule in place for this challenge. Going forward, we won't be able to use any duplicate Pokemon on our team. Oh, that's one big Cricketune. Oh, he's an angry Cricketune. And it turns out this cricket isn't the only bug around these parts that's pissed. It seems that after being struck by lightning last night, the noble Pokemon Kleavor has also come down with a serious case of the grumpies. I don't blame him, but we can't have that, so we set off to try to cheer up old Edward Axehands. But before we're able to step into the ring with the big bug, we need to prove ourselves to the group of feral children who rule these woods. The first of which is Cowboy Hat Kid with his level 100 Goomy. Since the Worm Squad was deemed illegal, we have to change up our team to be more diverse for this fight. But thankfully, there are more poison types available that we're able to sprinkle into our team to keep this second little Butterball feeling sick to its stomach. Unfortunately, this time, it's not as simple as keeping the Goomy poisoned and winning with some good RNG. No, in this battle, we get a nice little preview of how this game intends to screw us over for the rest of this challenge. You see, in Legends Arceus, the battle system is weird. It's not the usual turn-based formula we all know and love. It's a complicated mess. All you need to know is that sometimes faster Pokemon can take multiple turns in a row, which gives us incredible results like this, where Goomy is able to one-shot our Shellos and the Paris that we send in right after it without allowing us to take a turn. Yeah, and since every Pokemon we fight is level 100, they all have crazy high speed stats, so you can imagine this happened a lot. So how do we beat this little guy? Well, before we get to that, I want to ask you a question. Have you ever signed up for a random account online, then shortly after received a ton of spam that you definitely didn't ask for? Well, you're not alone. And luckily, today's sponsor, Incogni, is here to help. As we live more and more of our lives online, naturally, more of your personal information will end up out there in the magical place your parents know as the cloud. And it doesn't just disappear out there. No, there are people out there, evil people, and probably some good ones too, who just kind of collect this data and do whatever they want with it. And most of the time, that's perfectly legal for them to do. Just like it's perfectly legal for you to make them delete this information. But the rate at which your information is being collected is infinitely faster than the rate you can get it deleted, even if you spend all day submitting requests. And that's where Incogni comes in. Their service automatically contacts data brokers on your behalf and has them remove your information without you even having to lift your little fingies. If this sounds like something you want to try, you're in luck because Incogni hooked me up with a discount code Quinn, which will give the first 100 people who sign up at the link in the description 20% off of their service. Don't wait though, because this deal won't last long. If you want to start taking the security of your personal information seriously, sign up for Incogni today by using the link in the description, and if you're quick, you can use code Quinn for 20% off. Anyway, how do we beat this little guy? Well, it starts with us getting lucky on turn 1, as this Goomy goes for a non-damaging acid armor, allowing our lead Drifloon to get a bit of chip damage. Then from here, we get lucky again as this slug uses a strong style bubble. Basically a stronger but slower version of the attack, which drastically lowers its position in the action order. This allows us to get off 2 poison stings and leave the Goomy poisoned. From here, we stall for a couple turns, sending in a few non-essential Pokemon as the poison damage racks up. Finally, after a couple clutch quick attacks from Cyndaquil, the poison damage is just barely enough to finish this thing off. This gang of misfits still isn't ready to let us go in and throw stuff at their friend Kleavor. No, first we have to take on their leader Iridia and her Glaceon, which is a Pokemon kinda like Goomy, but better in pretty much every way. So for this fight, our strategy ends up being very similar to the last one, but we have to change up the team a little bit to make it work. Namely, we add a Graveler, which can actually do some pretty nice damage with super effective Rock Slide. Graveler is also tough enough to live through Glaceon's quick attack, which gives us 1 extra turn of poison damage, and that extra damage is enough for us to win the battle with 2 Pokemon alive this time. A new record. That victory marks the beginning of everyone's favorite part of this game. Bomb time, baby! We bomb this bug into oblivion, then report back to the commander, get cornered by the weird girl from the village who only comes out at night and is obsessed with ghosts, then move on to deal with the next frenzied noble out in the Crimson Mirelands. Here we link up with some old lady who needs us to get a piece of her wall back and have another battle with Volo. And in this battle, we don't even make it past his first Pokemon. Such prodigious strength! Don't patronize me. Thankfully, this is yet another in a long line of battles that you don't have to win. So we move on and find the bandits responsible for the structural larceny, then we're forced into a battle against their weakest member, Coin. She's rocking a level 100 Toxicroak, which can't be poisoned because it's part poison type. That means our #1 strategy is out the window. Thankfully, after beating us, these 3 criminals don't make off like bandits. No, they just kind of stand there and patiently wait for us to battle them again. Nobody ever said they were good bandits. It seems in order to beat this poisonous frog, we need to evolve our strategy. So we set out and catch some new team members to shake things up a bit. Then after a while spent brainstorming, we come up with a strategy that just might work. After it takes out our Drifloon on turn 1, we bring in Eugene to paralyze it with an Agile Style Stun Spore. Our Agile Style Stun Spore lands, which moves us up the action order, allowing our Butterfly to get big damage with a super effective Air Cutter. From here, we make our way down our roster of misfit toys, chipping away at this thing with super effective moves. And thanks to a clutch paralysis, our Graveler gets this frog low enough with a couple bulldozes that Scyther's able to come in and finish it off with an aerial ace. That win is more than enough to convince these ruffians to hand over the stolen slab. Then, after testing out a new dance for y'all, then we return the wall fragment and breeze through the rest of this bog without much issue, bombing the dancing noble Pokemon into submission on our way out. With the second frenzied noble calmed, the commander sends us out to the Cobalt Coastlands to investigate the script for this video because it seems that someone has stolen our transition. Right as we arrive, we have another battle with the Pearl Clan leader Iridia. In this battle, we find ourselves staring down not 1, but 2 level 100 enemy Pokemon. At least we don't have too much time to worry about all the danger we're in because Iridia's Glaceon and Eevee take turns running train on our entire team and take out 5 of our 6 Pokemon before we even get a chance to take a turn. As this was happening, I was just thinking about all the time that I wasted recording this challenge because at this point in the game, this battle was looking pretty unbeatable. But thankfully, Game Freak knew that the battles in this game were utter BS and spared us the misery of trying to beat this one by allowing us to move on without winning. From here, we see a lady about a dog and a guy about a fish, then use a Dust Bops to cook up a brilliant breakfast for Basket Legion, who becomes our new BFF. But as we're bonding, those bandits from before found up from behind and break off with our best boy. Broken up but not beat down, we decide to stop with all the B words and trail the bandits over to this volcanic island to rescue the dog. In order to rescue this pupper, we're forced into not one, not two, but 3 battles back to back against these bandits with no breaks. And I said I was gonna stop with the B words, so this left me feeling really frustrated. In some of our first few attempts, we're able to barely get through Clover's Abomasnow, but get hard stuck on the next fight against Quinn's Toxicroak. We try over and over and just can't crack through this second trainer. Not to mention the fact that we haven't even made it to the last battle against the leader Charm. This is where things start to get really serious. Since we have that fun rule of no grinding battles against wild Pokemon, we commence a different, much more painful type of grind. I've taken to calling it the Great Catch-a-thon. This is where we catch as many Pokemon as we can to give our team experience until we run out of Pokeballs. Then we gather a bunch of materials and make more Pokeballs. Rinse and repeat for more time than I care to admit. We do this until we've gained 10 to 20 levels on our chosen team, gathered and used a whole bunch of evolution items, and taught our Pokemon some very specific movesets. With our team trained and strategy set, we begin the glorious process of attempting this battle and praying for good RNG. Because dear God, I don't want to go back to the catch-a-thon. The sun rises and sets until we finally get a promising attempt. Our lead Cyndaquil gets big damage against Clover's Abomasnow with an overheat, then for some reason this thing goes for a single ice shard, which just tickles our starter and we're able to finish it off with a flamethrower. Meaning we get out of the first battle without losing a single Pokemon. That's huge and allows us to land a critical overheat against Quinn's Toxicroak, leaving it below half health before losing our first team member. Then we're able to bring in our Alakazam and finish the frog off with a strong Stout Confusion. Now we have finally arrived at the last battle against the leader Charm. For some reason, the game decides that we're gonna send out Scyther first, which makes no sense and is a huge bummer because it gets one-shot by her Rhydon. But this does give us a chance to swap in our Roserade and land a 4 times effective Energy Ball. It's not quite enough to finish off the Rhino, but it is enough that Alakazam is able to come in and finish it on the next turn with a Confusion. Then we find ourselves against her last Pokemon, and by far the most threatening of this whole bunch, Gengar. In a huge stroke of luck, this Gengar misses a Hypnosis on the first turn, and we're able to land a super effective Shadow Ball before losing Alakazam. Then we bring in our trump card, the Poison Dark type Skuntank, which resists all of this Gengar's moves and is able to tank 2 attacks from this offensive beast, then secure the W with a single Night Slash. It may not seem like this took too long, but I promise you it did, and it sucked. Anyway, after that whole ordeal, one of the dogs turns yellow, then we throw some Snickers at it till it gets back to its senses. From here, we report back to the commander, then move on to the 4th area of the game, the Coronet Highlands. Here we learn that Professor Laventon is almost definitely an alien in human skin. Look at the way he skulks around. Ugh. Anyway, in the Highlands we have a few battles that were completely trivialized thanks to the levels that we had to gain to beat the Bandit Gauntlet. We work our way through this area until we arrive at the first mandatory 3v1 battle in the game against everyone's least favorite character, Melly. As you can imagine, fighting 3 level 100 Pokemon at the same time is pretty hard. But as we all know, Melly is smelly, so the 2 Pokemon he has to back up his Stinky Ace Skuntank are both pretty bad. Another huge thing we have going for us is in the 3v1 or 2v1 battle format, the enemy Pokemon all have a small chance to skip their turn and just look around for some reason. This comes in clutch as we send in our newly evolved Rhyperior, and Melly's Score UP skips its first turn, which allows our Rhyperior to live through a Gust from Zubat. Then we get some big damage on his Skuntank with a high horsepower, live through a Flamethrower from the Skunk and a Venoshock from the Scorpion, and get another clutch turn skip from the Zubat, allowing us to fire off another high horsepower and take out Melly's most threatening Pokemon, Skuntank. From here, his 2 supports are able to take down our big boy, but without Skuntank, these 2 minions aren't able to put up much of a fight, and we finish out the battle with Magmortar. With Smelly out of our way, we're able to head in and totally remember to record us throwing bombs at the Noble Electrode, and now with the 4th Noble calmed, we report back to the commander, actually squeak out a victory against Ray for once, then make our way to the 5th and final area of this game, the Alabaster Icelands. Here we're able to crack through this guy's musculature, which is as hard and unyielding as ice, then chase this wild child around the map. map, until we corner her at the top of the Snowpoint Temple and have another 3v1 battle. Unlike the last time, in this fight, her two support Pokemon are both super strong. We try this battle a few times with our default squad until it becomes clear that this team is not gonna cut it. So we think for a while until we realize that her Electivire only has electric type moves. Not only that, but her whole team is weak to ground type attacks. So we head back to our pasture and add every single ground type that we currently have to our team. Then we give this fight another shot. We lead with Rhyperior, and miraculously on the first turn, both her Electivire and Magmortar choose to skip their turns and take in their surroundings. Unfortunately though, our first high horsepower misses, but we're able to live through a high horsepower from the opposing Rhyperior and immune our way through a Thunder Punch from Electivire. Then Magmortar skips its turn again, so we're able to smack it with the high horsepower before losing our Rhino to a Flamethrower. From here, we're able to bring in Gastrodon and take out the Magmortar before losing our big slug. Then our Hippowdon is able to come in and take out Electivire with a couple high horsepowers. Finally, Alakazam clutches it up with an Energy Ball to take out Rhyperior. After defeating this child, we befriend a local Braviary, then meet back up with the Muscle Man and gear up to quell the noble Avalugg. Did you just... Those didn't just come out of... No. Is there any other way? Turns out there's not another way, so we use these bombs of questionable origin to calm the frenzied Avalugg. Then after taking 20 boiling hot showers and still feeling dirty, we head back to our quarters and rest up for the night. In the morning we wake up and suddenly everything bad that's ever happened is our fault and we're exiled. With nowhere else to turn, we put our faith in Volo, who guides us to Black Hat Lady and then on to the Lake Spirits, who help us forge a chain to get all our friends back. With our new red chain, we head up to the top of Mount Coronet to make it all better, but on our way up there, we experience the greatest betrayal in Pokemon history. For as long as I live, I will never forgive you, Potato Mochi Guy. Anyway, our team is pretty freaking strong at this point, so we're actually able to beat him in the first couple of attempts without making any major changes. Then we arrive at the top of the mountain where we face off against the commander himself. But again, our team proves to be too strong for mere mortals to handle, and we legit take out one of the hardest fights in the game on our first try. There's still so much left in the end of this game, but I want to get to the good bit at the very end, so I'm just gonna gloss over some stuff. We catch Dialga, Palkia Piss, but too strong to catch. Mine or make Pokeball stronger. Strong Ball, catch Big Guy despite being a horse. Main story over, but game not done. Credits roll, catch legendaries, gather plates, have epic showdown against Commander on Prelude Beach, which is our first time fighting someone with more than 4 Pokemon, but certainly not our last. And with the help of Dialga, we're miraculously able to beat him first try, which makes us realize that legendaries are pretty OP. And you know what that means? Rule time, no more legendaries. This is a pretty huge rule because now that we have all the plates, the only thing we have left to do is battle the hardest trainer in Pokemon history. A biggie. After you've gathered all the elemental plates, the jolly merchant Volo turns against you and you duke it out in a battle of epic proportions on the top of Mount Coronet. In this battle, Volo's team is a bit of a doozy, let me tell ya. Our first few attempts against this guy show us that our default squad is nowhere near strong enough to even get past the first stage of this fight. And considering the fact that this fight has 3 stages, we're gonna need to make some changes. So we proceed to test out new strategies, different teams, and embark on quite a few catch-a-thons. We revise our squad more times than I want to think about, but in a few of our attempts, we actually managed to make it past Volo's initial team of 6. But as I mentioned before, there are a couple phases that follow this first battle. After you beat him the first time, Volo summons the legendary Giratina, and you have to beat this legendary not once, but twice in a row with no breaks. And in the few attempts that we even managed to make it to Giratina, our last Pokemon just gets instantly one-shot. I'll be honest, this fight made me take a break from this run for a few weeks. But when I came back, I had a clear picture of what I needed to do, and on the way up to fight Volo, this happened. If that's not a sign, I don't know what is. So how do we beat Volo? Well, it went a little something like this. We lead with a Gardevoir against Volo's Spiritomb and land a Moonblast turn 1. This does just enough damage to force Volo to burn his full restore on his first turn, allowing us to fire off another Moonblast. At this point, we need Spiritomb to use Hypnosis, and it has to miss. Unlikely, but on this very special attempt, that is exactly what happens, which allows us to finish off this swirly boy with another Moonblast. Next, Volo sends in his Roserade, who one-shot one-shots Gardevoir with a strong style Poison Jab, giving us a chance to swap in our Alpha Snorlax and fire off an Ice Punch. Then after the Roserade tickles our big boy with some spikes, it goes down to another Ice Punch. Next, Volo retaliates with his Lucario, one-shotting Snorlax with a close combat, but dropping its defense in the process. In return, we send in Hippowdon and smack it with a strong style high horsepower, which is just enough to finish off Lucario. Out of good options, Volo just sends in his Hisui and Arcanine, who falls to a couple 4 times effective high horsepowers. Next, he sends in his biggest threat. No, not Garchomp. Togekiss. This thing is an absolute tank and has been giving us tons of trouble up to this point. But thankfully, our Hippowdon lands an Ice Fang that not only does big damage, but also leaves it with Frostbite. This status does damage over time and also lowers the amount of damage Togekiss's attacks will be able to do, which makes it unable to kill our Hippo and allows us to get off a second Ice Fang. Then we bring in our Gastrodon and trade a couple Icy Winds for a Moonblast to finish it off. Now he's down to his last Pokemon, Garchomp. We decided to fight fire with fire and send out our own Garchomp. Doesn't work out, but still a pretty badass maneuver. Anyway, our Chompy doesn't do too much before getting KO'd, but thankfully we're able to bring in our final Pokemon Togekiss to clean up part 1 of this 3-part saga. Now, you might be looking at this situation thinking, there's no way Togekiss can beat a level 100 Giratina 2 times in a row. And for thinking that, you're dumb wrong and have zero hose. Here's why. It turns out Togekiss is actually immune to 2 of Giratina's moves, and of the 2 moves that can actually hit Togekiss, one is Aura Sphere, which it 4 times resists, and the other is Shadow Force, which is a strong attack but only has 5 PP. So what we're able to do is increase our defense with Calm Mind, drop Giratina's attack with Baby Doll Eyes, all while healing up with Rest. This allows us to stall through the PP for Shadow Force and Aura Sphere until this Giratina is out of attacks that can hit Togekiss. From here, we easily clean it up with Moonblast, but after dying once, this big guy transforms into its second, more powerful form, and comes back with a full health bar. You know what doesn't transform though? Its moveset. So we're able to use the exact same strategy and stall our way to victory. That's right, against all odds, we did it. Like the video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed it. Till next time.